a gentle reminder that next up, there will be the entrepreneur's journey. And so I'm excited to ask that our entrepreneurs who are joining us today come on board, but most importantly, Rosemary, who's going to be leading us in this next session. You will see in the comment box a request for you to fill out our feedback survey. Should you struggle to complete the survey, please reach out to the ANDE team. Rosemary, you're looking stunning. Thank you for joining us, and over to you. I can't wait to hear more from our entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Sakai. You look amazing, 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 and great job. Yeah, and I can see our entrepreneurs have joined us. Welcome, Aruna. Welcome, Thandeka. Hi, Marcelo. Hi, everyone. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Rosemary. Good to see you too.
Hi, Rosemary. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, so I'd just like to kick us off with today's session. And access to appropriate and affordable financial services remains one of the key constraints to SGB growth, and also presents the biggest opportunity to lift underserved communities out of poverty. On our entrepreneur panel today, we're extremely privileged to be joined by three incredible entrepreneurs who are doing remarkable work in the area of financial services. Today, I'm joined by Aruna Sampige, who's the founder of Roots Reforms Initiative based in India. Roots is a distribution company that facilitates access to financial services for rural communities by leveraging technology and women's potential. Marcelo Franca is the CEO of Celcoin based in Brazil. Celcoin is the largest open finance platform in Brazil that connects over 7.5 million Brazilians to financial services every month. And last but definitely not least, Thandeka Xaba, who is the principal at Digital Venture Africa based in South Africa. It is one of the very few Black women-managed venture capital funds in South Africa, and they work to bridge the funding and support gap for early-stage tech entrepreneurs. So a very big, warm ANDE welcome to you, Aruna, Marcelo, and Thandeka. And as is by now our virtual tradition, please feel free to drop your questions, comments in the chat box. So let's start with a brief introduction about yourselves, your journey, and what inspired your venture in financial services. And we'll start with you, Aruna, then go to you, Marcelo, and then finally Thandeka. Welcome.
Thank you, Rosemary. Firstly, I would like to thank ANDE and Upaya Social Ventures, that organization that referred me to this wonderful organization, the conference. Yeah, I am an entrepreneur based out of Bangalore, southern India. I've been in financial services industry for the last 6 years. Prior to that, I was part of a social technology company called Billion Lives, developing technology for government schemes, digitization, and corporate CSR, social responsibility, work digitization. So I grew up in India. After my education, went to Australia, lived and worked in Sydney for 7 years, returned to India in 2011. And that's when, I wanted to engage more closely with the communities and do something more impactful and closer to my heart. In India, I come from a small town, from a village. And that's where I wanted to give back as well. Started noticing that financial services is one area that needed a lot of work. Indian rural villages are generally well connected. However, financial services is one area where there is even now a lot of inequalities of access compared to bigger cities. So that's the problem that I'm addressing through a network of women. So we're identifying, training, and enabling women in the communities to provide financial services, a bouquet of financial services. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Aruna. And we'll just jump straight to Marcelo and then go to Thandeka.
Okay. I'm Marcelo, CEO founder at Celcoin. We are based at São Paulo, and I am also passionate about financial inclusion. I'm in this working with financial technology for the last 20 years. I think I'm a little older than Aruna. And before Celcoin, I was CTO at Lemon Bank. Lemon Bank was the first Brazilian bank focused on banking correspondent. It was a huge project. And also, I think I got the courage to be an entrepreneur. And we founded Celcoin in 2016 to very focus on the financial inclusion in Brazil. At the time, we had more than 40 million unbanked and underbanked people. And also in Brazil, just 5 banks, they concentrated more than 85% of the market. So it was a very dysfunctional market. And we created Celcoin. The idea was we were very focused to build a mobile money inspired on M-Pesa and other initiatives that worked very well in Africa and in other places. But our first version was a big failure. We saw our wallet being used by agents. They were like small stores, and they were using Celcoin to help the people in the communities. They were delivering financial inclusion using our technology, and also a lot of digital banks, fintechs, they were being created at the time, and we opened our infrastructure. I think we were the first in Brazil to deliver financial services through APIs. So today we have almost 200 fintechs, digital banks, and other companies that are connected at Celcoin APIs to deliver financial services. So we are very happy with the success, and we believe that we are just in the beginning.
Thanks, Marcelo. And I'll come back to you. I like the idea of mobile innovations from Africa inspiring you all the way in Brazil, M-Pesa. And I think we'll have that conversation later. Thandeka, welcome.
Thanks, Rosemary, and thank you so much for having me here. It's also such an honor to share the stage with such high impact entrepreneurs. It's very fascinating to just see the kind of work you're doing in your respective continents. So yeah, a bit of background about myself. So I studied finance and accounting, and kind of was on the tick box exercise that traditional parents would say, you've got to study this, and you've got to do maths or science or business. And I was ticking the box, but along the way, I was feeling a bit restless. I was just like, there's so many problems and there's so much going on around in South Africa, and so many problems and things that need to be fixed. Who is doing that? And so after I ticked all the boxes, it qualified as a chartered accountant. I went on to work in investment banking, but only really lasted 18 months because the restlessness just, reached a cap. So I decided to quit my job in investment banking and started a marketplace platform called Glam Alley. And essentially what it did is that it gave women, freelance women, the opportunity to showcase their work in the beauty services industry. So it's basically on-demand beauty services. And so you could order massage, nails, kind of any beauty service that you required via the platform. And what that did was it created quite a lot of jobs for women who didn't have access to work prior. But it also helped busy women, having come from corporate where you pretty much work all day and salons open from 8 to 5. There wasn't really any time to kind of, do your brows, or you're going to a wedding. It's just, it's always a disaster. So I saw a gap in the market and I started that business called Glam Alley. And while I was on this journey, I kind of had a first-hand experience, just realized how challenging it actually was to raise capital as a very early stage business, woman run, black founded. I started to kind of experience firsthand just how hard it was to access early stage capital. And I was on my fundraising journey and, had a couple of investors say, well, why don't you become part of the solution? We'd be willing to back you and go start a fund that actually addresses this problem, because everyone is talking about it, but no one is doing anything about it. So here's this opportunity. And so my co-founder and I, we pitched for a fund, and we were successful beginning of last year. And ever since, we've been kind of working to address that problem, which is supporting early stage entrepreneurs who are building solutions and using digital technology. And yeah, it's been great. I think we've just come across so many underserved and overlooked entrepreneurs who have been struggling for years to raise funding. And it feels quite good that we're forming part of that solution. So that's me and my story.
Wow. Yeah, always mind blown when you're speaking to entrepreneurs. But Thandeka, you raise an important point. You bring in, kind of like the gender aspect, and specifically talking about women. And I wanted to just turn this back to Aruna a little bit to kind of maybe just talk about what are the peculiar challenges that women entrepreneurs face with regard to access to finance, because you serve women, right? Uh, so maybe just briefly talk through what some of those peculiar challenges, and I think Thandeka alluded to some of them, but then also just talk through some of your own challenges in starting and growing your business. Aruna.
Sure. Yeah. I think our challenges are very similar to many other countries' challenges as well for women entrepreneurs. But there is another layer to it. There is a big demarcation of urban and rural part of the country. Urban women have access to things and are able to pitch their businesses, and they know where to go. These are the new age entrepreneurs, our tech entrepreneurs, more educated out there, sort of entrepreneurs that are coming up. And there is a segment of women entrepreneurs that work in the micro entrepreneurships in rural India that don't even realize that they need funding. And through funding, they can take their business to a next level. Many a times you come across good micro businesses, but they don't know an external fund can impact them and they can take their businesses to a different level. So there is that a big difference. Like anything else in a country like India, which is so large and which is so diverse, problems and challenges are also different. The women in the cities, what we face to what the women entrepreneurs in the rural areas face. So we work. Personally, I've been lucky to have been bumped into this business model that does not need too much capital. So I am a distribution company, and I hop onto my clients' technology. I hop onto my clients' products and building this large network. As of now, it is on Excel sheets, which can be digitized. I'm looking to digitize at some point, but we have managed to build a good traction, build a good business model using this lightweight kind of a distribution model. In India, the challenges are, proving to the investors that you can do this. The two, when you are a single founder, like woman founder, running your business, it's a little bit difficult explaining, meeting the investors and convincing them is a challenge. Gender bias to a certain extent, and then there is family, and then there is how do you how will you manage to do this? Standard set of questions. But ecosystem is thriving. Startup ecosystem in India is really, really good right now. Lot of accelerator programs. There is grants and even investors, investors looking to fund good businesses. This is the best time in India. Startup ecosystem is thriving. And then there is, yes, there is government schemes and programs as well that you can reach out to, which is not very easy as compared to reaching the private investors, but there is that support system as well available.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
I
much,
have
Aruna. No, absolutely. And you mentioned a very critical point that sometimes it's not just the availability of the finance, but something as simple as awareness, people knowing that there is a fund somewhere or that there's support that they could access. So thanks so much for that. I'd like to quickly jump back to you, Marcelo, and then just because we will talk about the ecosystem a little bit more, Aruna, and thanks for
Yes.
kind of starting us off on that conversation. But Marcelo, maybe just talk us through, and just thinking about how businesses start, grow. What are some of your milestones or big moments? When was that moment where you thought, I'm onto a good idea. It looks like I might succeed, and things are looking up. What were some of the things that kept you motivated? What were some of the signs that you were seeing, whether in your business or how the engagements were happening, either with investors or customers? What were those big moments for you that made you feel like, okay, I did the right thing and maybe I shouldn't look for a job?
Sure, sure. I think we have our first moment, as I said, it was very inspired in mobile money, in this case, is in Africa especially. And we realized that it was very, very capital intensive, very hard to raise money. It was also a prepaid wallet, and I don't know if there is an echo, but as Aruna said, I think the second moment it was when we pivot the business to a more B2B. We started to I think we let the B2C focus, and we started to work as a platform for other digital banks, fintechs, companies that want to provide financial services, and also to Brazilian micro entrepreneurs. They can use our technology to deliver financial service anywhere. So instead of a customer in the countryside, they go to a banking branch, or they can go to a Celcoin point of sale. So I think this was the biggest moment when we made the pivot to a B2C business to a platform, an open finance platform. And countryside, they go to a banking branch, or they can go to a Celcoin point of sale. So I think this was the biggest moment when we made the pivot to a B2C business to a platform. I think it's just a small delay or an echo. So I think this is our first moment was as a B2C business, and after this as a platform. And when we started as a platform, everything worked. We get the money, the investors, and we received our seed money from Vox Capital. They are the main impact fund in Latin America, so they were very supportive. And I think this was the aha moment, and everything worked, and in a different way that we planned. But I think the impact it was the same. We are delivering financial inclusion, but instead of being directly connected with the end consumers, we are now working as an open platform where everyone can be connected. And also in Brazil, we had a very specific financial market, very concentrated in just 5 banks. And now we are helping to change this. Any digital bank can start in Brazil and provide all the services that only the big banks could offer in the past. So I think this combination of partnership with this micro entrepreneurs in the streets, and also digital banks and other fintechs, it is working very well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marcelo, for that. And as you were talking, you were just triggering some more thoughts into my mind about what it means to actually get to that point, the points that you're talking about. I'd like to encourage our delegates to put in their questions. If you have questions for Marcelo, Thandeka, Aruna, or you just have a general question to any one of our panelists, just drop them in the chat box and we'll be able to pick them up and bring them onto the conversation as we wind down. So I'd like to shift gears a little bit and maybe come back to you, Thandeka. So you focus on early stage financing in the tech space. Knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? And what significant changes, have happened within the South African ecosystem to accelerate access to finance for early stage financing? Because we know that that's a very vulnerable group.
Yeah, I think that's actually such a great question. And do stop me, because I could go on for ages with this one. But I think what I'll do differently, knowing what I know, is focusing the work of deciding on who to invest in on the entrepreneurs. Whereas I think traditional investors tend to over-index on other factors like the technology, the addressable market. There's certain things that can be fixed, but I think the one thing that can't be fixed is the person you invest in. There's not much that you can change. So I think what's been interesting in our journey is that we've done all these DDs on companies, but ultimately, when I look at the businesses that we've been in support of, it's because of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur has the resilience to, as Marcelo mentioned, pivot if needed. They're good with people. They can hire a solid team. People like working with them. That's actually what gives most businesses that we've seen succeed their edge. And I think what's been good for the South African venture capital ecosystem is that there have been more funds that have come into play and existence. Whereas before, I think, if you think about supply and demand, there were very few venture capital funds and then tons of entrepreneurs looking for funding. So there wasn't a healthy kind of competitive edge in the space. And we're seeing more capital come, flood the African continent, South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya in particular, and Egypt, which is really good for the ecosystems because, entrepreneurs are now they have the liberty to choose who they want to work with. So as a venture capital fund, you can't just offer capital. You actually do have to offer some value to these teams in addition to just money, which is really good. It's forcing everyone to be better at what they do. And I'll say the last dynamic, which is quite particular to South Africa, is just the economic environment that we're in, which is quite dire at the moment. Our youth unemployment rate is sitting at around 60%. And so, if you think about how long it takes to get a degree and find a job, and people really don't have 7 years to be suffering, without having any pay or any view of how they're going to get out of poverty. So you're seeing young people really leverage technology to make money. All these platforms that provide micro jobbing opportunities. Young people are saying, well, the system has failed us. Let's create our own way, out of the suffering. And you're seeing that a lot of young people are starting businesses as a result. So while they're at school, they're looking to entrepreneurship actually to find their own way of helping their families, helping themselves, which is good for the ecosystem, but I guess not good at a macro level. But I think, as South Africans do, when we're faced with trouble, we find a way, and that's what we've seen, which is encouraging. Yeah.
Finding a way, always finding a way. So I think you mentioned, all those points that you mentioned are, excellent points, and they touch on a lot of the issues that even as we're having these conversations within the conference. I mean, a lot of what you're saying is actually, what is coming up in some of those thematic conversations. But I think one of also the most not really surprising, because it's also context, is that we're beginning to get to a point where demand, there's like an inflection point between demand and supply. Whereas for years, we're just talking about, very competitive, we're all competing for a very small pot of gold, and so on and so forth. So that's really interesting to hear, at least from a Southern African perspective. Thanks for that, Thandeka. So quickly, then maybe as we wind down, and this is to all of you, because I think one of the things we keep saying is that, it's about the ecosystem, it's about the support infrastructure, it's about the environment that makes it possible, for entrepreneurship to thrive, for businesses to grow. Whether it's a supply of money, whether it's the support services, whether it's the networks, or just access to, business opportunities. So I'd just like you to quickly, and we can go around, starting with you, Aruna, Marcelo, and then Thandeka. And you started earlier by talking about what support is available within the ecosystem. So maybe specifically within India, just talk through like what support structures are there, but also what has been helpful to you, and which are the kind of systems and structures that exist that you've been able to find the most use out of, and available and accessible to you.
Yes, good point, Rosemary. In India, earlier I was mentioning that the startup ecosystem itself is very, very at its best. When we were when I mean 10, 15 years ago, when we were looking to start our careers, if somebody says that I want to be an entrepreneur, people would look at them as, are you crazy? Like, first you need to settle down, you need to get a job, you need to get married. It's not like a good marriage prospect as well, being an entrepreneur. It's a risky profile. To now, it's kind of an image, that somebody is willing to take a chance, take a risk, and go out there and find a solution, is seen with a different view. So the ecosystem is really, really good in India. And a lot of private investors are investing, angel investors, women investing in women. We see a lot of trends. Having said that, there is a larger support system of government and other organizations. Structured support that is coming in is still difficult to reach, like to be able to get there, and for everybody to access it is a little bit difficult for a very early stage entrepreneurs with ideas. It's difficult. It's again the similar question, same questions are being asked. What is your differentiator? I don't have a differentiator. I have a good business, and I'm serving thousands of customers, and they're happy we're making money. I don't have a differentiator. There is a need, and we're serving a need. And 3-year balance sheet, all sort of questions we go through. But I guess, that's the way they make sure that when they are giving funds at that rate, that grants, they need to make sure as well. So, but it's overall, it's a good, positive ecosystem in India, I should say. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you bring in a nice point about the investor, when you're having a conversation with the investor, and these are some of the things that keep coming up. And then your own reality as an entrepreneur. And sometimes there's a mismatch in terms of
Correct,
that
correct.
conversation. But yeah,
Yeah,
thanks, Aruna.
yeah, sure.
Marcelo, do you want to talk about the ecosystem in Brazil?
Yeah, sure. I think in Brazil, the ecosystem is also evolving very fast. I think when we started the business 4 or 5 years ago, it was very different. There are a lot of private investors coming from outside, angels. A lot of people, as Aruna said, wants to create a business instead to go work in a bank or in the industry. So I think the ecosystem is growing. I think we have also a lot of acceleration programs, a lot of nice place to build entrepreneurs. I think now in Brazil, one of the challenges is the lack of engineers. A lot of there is a kind of war for good people, especially in technology. So the companies are getting crazy with the lack of engineers, and I think the ecosystem is evolving very fast. I think this is a very good moment to create a business, but at the same time, we are always reading the news about Series A's, B. It's never so easy as we are reading the news. But to get the money, get investor interest, we have also to have good mentors, advisors, and connections. I think this is also very important to put a project, to start a project with funding.
Thanks, Marcelo. And Thandeka, maybe if you could talk about, I know you touched on a little bit about it, but just maybe also you maybe just to add on, what has been most useful to you, whether it's networks, whether it's support from public support, government, or just specific networks that you've been able to tap into that have been more useful or maybe more accessible than others.
Sure. So I'd say that probably the most impactful resource that we've had as a team is advisors. So people who are willing to hold our hands, walk the journey with us, acknowledge that a lot of the things we won't know because in entrepreneurship you're building from scratch, but these people have the lessons and they're willing to pass them down. And I think that's very important for an entrepreneurial ecosystem to grow and survive. You almost need like people like us now in a few years' time, or even now, should already start looking and seeing like who can we support to reach or to achieve similar achievements to what everyone else on the call has achieved. And then I think also just putting yourself out there. So for instance, a platform like this, amazing, because I've learned so much about the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Bangalore and in Brazil. So we'll be calling you guys if I visit. But just I think it's more engagements like this where you meet people. You meet people and you don't know what to expect, but after multiple engagements, you end up working for them, or they end up connecting you to someone who does. So I think it's quite important to just put yourself out there and like have an open energy, because that's how things compound, is by making these kinds of serendipitous connections. So I'd say that has really been what has carried our team since inception, is just those two things.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for that. And we at Andy like to hear your last statement that this kinds of platforms indeed are useful ways of getting the word out there, connecting, engaging. And your point, Marcelo, about I like the statement about a war for good people. In fact, I'm going to use it somewhere. A war for good people, especially engineers. Because I think that's an interesting conversation about talent and where that conversation is going. So thanks for that, Marcelo, and thanks Thandeka for those very useful insights on the ecosystem. So I think by way of wrapping up, and I think I want to encourage you to continue dropping your questions on the chat. We are answering them as we're going. So if you have any specific question, direct it to Aruna, Marcelo, or Thandeka. But I think as we wrap up, maybe each of you could talk about, what's next for you. So this is the time to plug away, your the opportunities you're seeing in your space. What's next? What are the plans? What are the big opportunities that you're seeing within the financial services space? What more needs to be done within the ecosystem around financial inclusion? So this would just be free flowing thoughts about what's next for you, and where you see your organization going. But what are the opportunities? Aruna, again, we'll go back in that order.
Sure. Um, Access and choices of financial services is one of the big issues for rural India. And I saw that problem and I just went out with a lot of passion to address it. However, didn't know like how, what, when. Initially tried a little bit on with technology, played around, and then realized, okay, why reinvent the wheels? There is many technologies that we can leverage and start providing service. Played around with a few models and then bumped into this women in the communities model. We call it the white space strategy. So that we take a region and we see which bankers are there, where are they operating, and where are they not reaching? Usually now in India, formal banking sector, big banks, big players are based at a hub point and they are covering that 25, 30 kilometers sort of radius. And then there is the rest of it. So we started planting women entrepreneurs inside the communities and training them, coaching them to become a mini bank and enabling them through technology. So she in her hands. So India is now going through a big digital transformation. We call it next 500 million users of technology are waking up. And in India, villages, in every family, there is 3, 4 smartphones. Mom, dad, kids, everyone has a smartphone. And they know Facebook, they know WhatsApp, they know Twitter. So how do we leverage this to give them the service that they want at their doorsteps is next big thing for us. Women Network is helping greatly in penetrating at scale unheard of. Our competitors, the formal lending sector, they're all at the hub points, but they're not really reaching the unreached. And that's in terms of impact creation, as well as in terms of business prospect. It's amazing for us. So that is what we are doing. We're building that network and scaling that network and enabling women within the communities, because when we are serving underserved segments, we are lending non-collateral loans. So the assessment becomes very, very important. So sitting somewhere else, assessing them to sitting in your neighborhood, your own friend, your own, known person assessing, there's a lot of credibility into it. So we're doing better business and at a scale unheard of using this woman potential. So scaling and that is one thing for me, next big thing. And second is B2C. Now is the I feel that the segment is waking up and getting ready for receiving things directly. So we used to send an agent initially. It was very, very engagement heavy, and people had to go down there, do the lending as well as collections and selling of all other services. Then it became phygital. So what we do is, I call it phygital because it's a combination of physical and digital intervention. And now the next big thing is digital. Digital for the underserved segment in vernacular where they are sitting because they are digitally open and they have technology in their hands. So I feel India is ready for B2C, our segment that we are looking at. It's from cities to now, if we are a marketplace out there, it's an amazing opportunity for us to tap into. And those are a couple of big things. There's many more. There's healthcare that can go into the hands of the women. There is education that we can tap.
Let's start with
That
those.
yeah. That's what we can do.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Aruna. So
E-commerce.
scaling, yeah, scaling B2C, and I'll steal this idea of digital, that midway between the digital and the physical. And it makes so much sense, especially in the context of the geographies that we all come from. And I like also that you're thinking about, how to ride this digital transformation, and that therein lies the opportunity for growth. Thank you so much. Marcelo, what's next for Celcoin?
I think in Brazil we are now in a very, very special moment for financial services. A lot of things are changing, especially we are living a kind of decentralization of the financial services. Every company wants to deliver financial services like loans, payments, and instead of just banks. So I think we opened our platform in the past to survive because it was the best move. But now we are in a very, maybe one of the hottest space. We started providing APIs before all this open finance, embedded finance, banking as a service, all these fancy names now. But I think there are a lot of opportunities because of this combination of more people being using financial services in Brazil, more companies that wants to deliver financial services, and they need APIs, infrastructure, a lot of things that we provide. Also, the Brazilian Central Bank is very supportive, and they are very they are stimulating competition. They just created the open banking regulation in Brazil, and a lot of things is going to change. So I think we are very, very optimistic with the future. I think maybe in 2 to 5 years, the financial market in Brazil has been completely different, and we are very happy to be part of this.
Wow, thanks so much, Marcelo. And I think one of the most fascinating thing for me about what you're doing in Brazil is this idea about open platforms, and like you're delivering APIs to the multiply effect. I mean, somebody could just start another business in some rural community off your platform, and just the potential for financial inclusion, with what you're doing is just amazing. So thank you for that. Thandeka, where are you flying to, and what are the opportunities, and where do you see things going with you?
Sure. So I think we are still very early in our journey. So I don't think much will change in terms of what we're trying to achieve, which is identifying underserved entrepreneurs who are building great businesses that bridge income inequality. And so that's what we do every day. We're looking for those kinds of entrepreneurs. So we're still very early in the game, and we're hoping to get to a lot more of those. But until we've gotten there, we're going to keep our eye on the prize and kind of keep on doing that.
Yeah, and what we can do is encourage you, and make sure to. I mean, this is like a whole new network, and reach out. This is what ANDE is all about. Then it's not just ANDE, but the network that exists. So I'd like to, if we don't have any questions, and I think there was some question that came in, and I think we answered those in the chat. Yeah, so I'd now like to wrap up the session. And I'd want to say thank you, Aruna. Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Thandeka, for sharing your journeys with us today. We applaud you, we appreciate you, and wish you all the best in your venture. Next up, we have cafe conversations. As many of you experienced yesterday, these conversations are meant to replicate an intimate conversation around a dinner table. So imagine that you have just met up in a cafe for a conversation about a topic that interests you with a small group of 20 people who share the same interests. Now, ANDE has not only brought the cafe to you, it has also brought your favorite group of like-minded people in 6 simultaneous cafe conversations. So I would encourage you to log into any of these sessions in the sessions section of the platform, hop in, engage, connect, share, and most importantly, have fun. Thank you for joining us today. Grab your coffee, tea, and see you at the cafe conversations, which are coming up right after this. Thanks, Thandeka. Thanks, Aruna. Thanks,
Thank
Marcelo.
you.
All the
Thank
Thank
best.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye.
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 Bye.